this video, we're going to continue talking about the use of percentages in business. So we're refreshing our percentage knowledge. Certain percentages are frequently used because they do routine calculations. These kinds of calculations are a calculation where you might quarter something or cut it in half, where you might double something. Those kinds of calculations occur quite frequently, and percentages are used all the time in order to do those kinds of calculations. So taking a look at Table 3, we see some common percentages for routine calculations. 0% represents none. So if there were, say, 120 ducks in a pond, and you caught 0 of them, that would mean you caught 0% of the ducks. 0 ducks out of 120 is 0%. 10% is a tenth, 25% is a quarter, 33.33 decimal repeating is a third, although that's often rounded just to 33.33. 50% is half, 66.66 decimal repeating, although again that's often rounded, and in this case that would be rounded up. 66.67 is often how that would be rounded, although that kind of rounding with thirds and 2/3 can cause problems because it's actually a big jump, that round. Anyway, 66.66 decimal repeating is 2/3, 75% is 3/4, 100% actually represents 1, which we'll talk about in a second, but it means all of it. So if you caught all 120 ducks that were in the pond, you would have caught 100% of the ducks. 150% is 1.5, and 200% is twice or double. So we have this all nicely organized in this table, and if you ever need it, you can refer to it. But you won't need the table if you think of the fact that we talked about before, which is that percent means out of 100. So why is 0% none? Well, 0% equals 0 over 100, because that's what percent means, which equals 0. So 0 is 0. 0% is 0. What about a tenth? So 10% is 10 over 100, because that's what percent means. And what is that? That's 0.1, which is exactly 1/10. You could also write this 1/10. Put 1 divided by 10 into your calculator, you will get 0.1, unless you have it set to show fractions. Why is 25% a quarter? Well, 25% is a quarter because 25 over 100 is 25%. That's what it literally means. And that equals 0.25, which is 1/4. If you go ahead and put your traditional fractional 1/4 into a calculator, of course, you will get 0.25 as the decimal form of that fraction. And this continues. A third, if you put 33.33 decimal repeating over 100, you would get 0.333333 decimal repeating. This is 50%, so 50% is 50 over 100, and that equals 0.5, which of course is the decimal representation for 1/2. So the reason these percentages do what they do when you use them to calculate, when you multiply that 0.5 times a number, it's going to take 50% of that number, is because they literally are those fractions. They're just a different representation of those fractions so that we can talk about them more easily. 100% being 1 sometimes can be confusing, but if you think about it, it's not. So 100% equals 100 divided by 100, which equals 1. So there's no way around it. 100% is just 1. If you want to calculate 100% of 120 ducks, you multiply 1 by 120 and you get 120 ducks, which is 100% of what was in our pond that we're using as an example. Looking at 200%, that's twice or double, so we can see that clearly when we look at 200 divided by 100, which is what 200% means, and that equals 2. So if you multiply something by 200%, what you're doing mathematically is multiplying it by 2, doubling it. So example 4.4 asks us to calculate 150% of 156. So how many of 156 is 150%? So first of all, we see in this table 150% is 1.5. So this gives us a few different strategies to attack this, but we want to use percentages in this lesson, so we're going to use percentages. When calculating a percent of a total, you're going to multiply the percentage expressed mathematically times the total. 150% is 1.5. Expressed as a percentage, we've got 150 divided by 100, right? Because that's what 150% means, which equals 1.5. So to calculate 150% of 156, we multiply 1.5 times 156, and we get 234. So we knew we should get a number bigger than 156 because we're taking 1.5 times that, so we've got 1 plus a half. And that brings me to a nice way to check this. So if we wanted to make sure that 234 was correct, and also this is just a way for us to check in with some facts about percentages. Percentages just add up. So if I wanted to take 150% of 156, I could take 100% and add it to 50%. 100% of 156 would be 1 times 156, which equals 156. 50% of 156 would be 0.5 times 156. How did I know that was 0.5? It's because we just calculated it out when talking about the table. 50% is 50 over 100, which is 0.5. That's why it's a half. 0.5 of 156 is 78. And just as 100% plus 50% equals 150%, which is what we're looking for, 156 plus 78 equals 234, which is exactly what we got by just using 150% from the beginning. But you can take percentages apart like this and add up pieces of them. That is how they work. Let's take a look at example 4.5. Example 4.5 says, use percentages to calculate 3/4 of 615. Write the answer to the hundredths place. Okay, so the hundredths place, that, as a reminder from our rounding video, that is the second decimal place. And we're asked to use percentages to calculate 3/4 of 615. So looking up at our table, 3/4 is 75%. So to calculate a percentage of a number, you simply take that percentage, divide by 100, you get your decimal percentage. Take that percentage, multiply by the total, which is 615, and we get 461.25. Now I keep writing out this 75 over 100, 29 over 100, 50 over 100, 150 over 100, all of that works, right? All of that gets you to where you need to go. But just notice that 75 divided by 100 is actually just taking the decimal point on 75 and moving it twice to the left. So if I take that 75, there's an implicit decimal point on it. It's right here. Dividing by 100 is the equivalent of moving the decimal 1 place, 2 places to the left. We put it here, we erase it here, and you don't have to actually, you can just do this in your head. Whenever you're looking at a percentage, take that decimal, move it 2 to the left, and you get what you have to multiply the total by. So for example, 150, the implicit decimal is here, move it twice to the left, 1, 2, and you get 1.5. This movement of the decimal when dividing by 100, the same idea is going to be used in example 4.6, although not dividing by 100. So suppose your restaurant bill was $54 and you wanted to leave a 20% tip. Is there an easy way to figure the tip? And I realize several of you have just said to the screen, yeah, it's called an app, or yeah, it's called my phone. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to get a little more mathy than that. So suppose your restaurant bill was $54, you wanted to leave a 20% tip. Is there an easy way to figure the tip? And the answer is yes. Yes. And the key is to notice that 20% is 10% plus 10%. So if you could somehow figure out 10%, then if you just double the 10%, you would get 20%. Here I'm writing the multiplication just with parentheses instead of the way we've been writing it, which is 2 times 10%, which is 20%, but it's just different notation for the same thing. So one way to get 10% of 54 is to do exactly what we've been doing. 10% is a tenth. 0.1 times 54 is, go get your calculator, right? No, don't get your calculator. Here's what you do. 0.1 times 54 is the same thing as 1 divided by 10 times 54. I just rewrote the 0.1, which is 1/10, as 1/10. If you multiply by the reciprocal of 10, that's the same as dividing by 10. So what this is 54 divided by 10. So up here, we did 75 divided by 100, and that moved the decimal twice to the left. Now we're doing 54 divided by 10. What's that going to do to the decimal? What it's going to do is move it once to the left. So dividing by 100 moves the decimal point 2 places to the left, whereas dividing by 10 moves the decimal point 1 place to the left. So when we start with 54, implicit decimal is here. 1 place to the left puts it right there. So 10% of 54 is 5.4. Now that you have 10%, how do you get to 20? 2 times 5.4 is 10.8. And $10.80 is what you should leave for your 20% tip. If you want to leave a 15% tip, you can use the same technique. Get 10% by moving the decimal in the total 1 place to the left, and then in your head divide that roughly in half. Add the 10% to the 5%, which is half of 10%, and you will have 15%. 20% is just easier because you move that decimal place 1 to the left, double the resulting number, and that is 20%. No app needed.